Hey, hi, hello everybody, hello, welcome back. My name is Katie and today I want to take a look at two of my favorite things, Taylor Swift and books. Here is today's mug. I don't actually have a Taylor Swift mug, but I am wearing my folklore merch. Taylor Swift is no stranger to referencing books and poetry in her works. She does it all of the time. But I did notice with folklore and Evermore, those references have gotten a little more subtle and they've gotten a little better in my opinion. And also there's more of them. But she does have some cool and interesting literary references in her back catalog. So this is not an overall every single literary reference she's ever used. These are just my favorites, ones that I think are the best. I'm gonna kick it off with a book that is not my favorite, but the way she uses this reference in one of her songs is definitely my favorite, especially since she's used this particular book before in the past, and that reference in my opinion was a total miss. I want to talk about the juxtaposition between the two.
We're all bored, we're all so tired of everything. We wait for trains that just aren't coming. We show off our different scarlet letters. Trust me, mine is better.
The song that I am referencing is New Romantics off of her album 1989, and the book is obviously The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. The line here that is the direct reference is, "We show off our different scarlet letters, trust me, mine is better." The Scarlet Letter takes place in Puritan Boston, and it follows the main character Hester, who has a child of unknown parentage. She's not married, and so that is considered very taboo at the time. So she is forced to endure this public humiliation of wearing a scarlet A on her clothing forever into the future, so everybody will know that she is an outcast and she is shamed. The reason why I love this so much is because I think she's alluding to Scarlet Letter directly, but I think you could also interpret it as her flipping that Scarlet Letter trope on its head, which is something that she does a lot, which I really enjoy. So you'll see a theme of that throughout this video. The song overall, I believe, is Taylor making a commentary on how she is viewed, and specifically how her romantic life has been viewed through the public lens. She has notoriously been criticized for the amount of people that she dates and for writing songs about them. I think this is kind of a clapback at people who judge how she's lived her romantic life. Presumably the New Romantics and Taylor in this song have scarlet letters because they are being judged for living their romantic life and their love life differently from how people have traditionally done it. And that could be said for all millennials and the younger generations in general. I think people view love and partnership generally in different ways, but we are specifically referring to these people being outcasts for their love life, which is a direct reference to the Scarlet Letter. But we could also see this as Taylor celebrating the fact that she is doing what she wants in her love life and not really caring what people think, because the line is, "We show off all our scarlet letters, trust me, mine is better." So she is turning that symbol of shame in the book into a symbol of almost pride in the song. Taylor has consistently been judged, in a way you could say made an outcast, by her excessive romantic passion, and that is a direct link to the Scarlet Letter because of the themes in that book. So we get these themes not just in this one line, but I think throughout the entire song. So I really appreciate the reference here because the themes of the novel reflect back on the themes of the entire song, in my opinion. Real quick, I do want to juxtapose this reference with the same novel she references in Love Story. Love Story was written well before New Romantics and when she was a lot younger, and Taylor references Scarlet Letter and also Romeo and Juliet, and in this song it almost feels like she's just name dropping famous romance novels, and I do think it's a little misplaced here, and I don't fault her for that. I think everyone misunderstands Romeo and Juliet, or a lot of people misunderstand Romeo and Juliet when they first read it when they're younger, and represent it as this grand epic romance. And I think that's just a part of rereading and evolving and growing and seeing different things in literature as you grow up, which is really cool. But I do not like these references in Love Story. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoy the song. It's very fun and I loved it when it came out and I was in high school and like watching Pride and Prejudice for the first time. It was a total vibe, but I think these references aren't very nuanced. Whereas when we look at the Scarlet Letter reference in New Romantics, you can dig a little bit deeper. Yes, bravo, A+, love this reference in New Romantics. Even though I didn't adore the Scarlet Letter, the book, I really just think this is a very well done reference. Next, I want to move on to probably one of my favorite songs of hers ever, if not definitely my favorite song off of Reputation, and that is Getaway Car.
No, nothing good starts in a getaway car. It was the best of times, the worst of crimes. I struck a match and blew your mind.
In Getaway Car, we get the literary reference, the first line, technically the second line, but it's the first line that we hear Taylor sing without the synthetic background kind of vocals to set up the song. And that reference is to A Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. That first line, it was the best of times, it was the worst of crimes, is a direct, almost direct quote from the first line of A Tale of Two Cities that reads, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times." In Getaway Car, we are following the story of two people who are getting away after they've committed a crime. I do like how Taylor tweaks the line a little bit because it would have been very easy just to pull directly from A Tale of Two Cities and just have that reference as a catchy way to start off the song. But I do think it was the best of times, it was the worst of crimes, just is different enough to fit better with the themes of the song. So if we dig a little bit deeper and go past the actual literal meaning of the song, two people get in a getaway car after they like committed a robbery, this song is widely interpreted to be about Taylor leaving one relationship for another one. She was wanting to get out of this relationship and then met this person and used this person to get out of this relationship. But then once she had this relationship, it wasn't a good feeling because of the way that it started. At the beginning of the song, you're getting these emotional highs. They're really excited, they're flying, her heart's racing. And then by the end of the song, she's crying in a getaway car, she's dying in a getaway car. So it's really fitting with the best of times, worst of times theme, best of times, worst of crimes, etc. So overall, the metaphor of the committing a crime and robbery, etc., I think works really well to translate what she was going through with the relationship. And you could argue that A Tale of Two Cities is about the best of times, the worst of crimes, not just the best of times, the worst of times. Without spoiling too much in A Tale of Two Cities, there is a male character who will do anything for his love, his female character. And I think that reflects as well into the getaway car scenario where you have this male character who's willing to play this role for Taylor to get out of this relationship. I don't know, maybe I'm reading a little too much into that one, but I did enjoy kind of dissecting what she meant, why she kicked off this song with A Tale of Two Cities reference. Overall, excellent reference. I really enjoyed this one. I think it works very well with the themes of the song, the themes of the book. Bravo. So now I want to transition into the references from Folklore and Evermore. There's a little bit more, and these are definitely lean more towards being my favorites. And I want to start off with illicit affairs.
Make sure nobody sees you leave. Hood over your head, keep your eyes down. Tell your friends you're out for a run. You'll be flushed when you return. Take the road less traveled by.
This reference comes towards the middle of the song, and Taylor is directly quoting a poem from Robert Frost, his most famous poem called The Road Not Taken. Taylor is taking her reference from the very end of the poem, which says, "Two roads diverged in a wood, and I I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. This is another scenario where I think Taylor is subverting kind of the traditional analysis of this poem. So traditionally, I would say this poem is about nonconformity and choosing your own path. It's a lot about choice and what is the right choice for you, living a life that maybe not everybody is going to live or be happy with. And the author of this poem ends up saying this made all the difference in choosing the road less traveled. So going down a path in life that not a lot of people have gone down, but he has found fulfilling. However, Taylor is using this reference in a song about having an illicit affair. She is saying take the road less traveled as a metaphor of not getting caught. So you could say literally take the road less traveled, you know, take the back road, don't get caught, go somewhere where you won't get caught. I just think that's interesting because of the hopeful themes around this poem and how she kind of subverts it and says maybe the road less traveled is not always a good thing, or there are pros and cons to each road and you have to consider them carefully. Otherwise you'll be down this path, you're in this affair that you can't get out of. I think you could also interpret this a little bit as kind of a romanticized version of the poem as well. So you think about the road less traveled or the road not taken and all the possibilities that are at the end of that path. And I think that directly parallels to this song because Taylor at the beginning is talking about the start of an affair where she says, what started in beautiful rooms ends with meetings in parking lots. And that's the thing about illicit affairs and clandestine meetings and longing stares. It's born from just one single glance, but it dies and it dies and it dies a million little times. So you could think of the road not taken as this potential of what could have been. And it kind of seems so wonderful at that time before you've gone down that path. But eventually when you get down there and you realize what's going on in this affair example, you aren't happy with where it went. Ultimately, a good reference. I like that she slipped in some poetry here. Moving on to another song on Folklore called Cardigan. This was her first single, and let's hear what the reference is.
On the last train, marked me like a bloodstain. I knew you tried to change the ending, Peter losing Wendy.
So in this song Cardigan, Taylor is referencing Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie. Cardigan to me is a song about looking back on your first love and young love and kind of wistfully wishing for that kind of feeling again. And I think the Peter Pan reference works perfectly with this because Peter actually loses Wendy because she grows up. So just like we are reflecting back on our young love that we lost, Peter is reflecting back on losing Wendy because she has grown up. So the love has grown, Wendy has grown. I think it works very nicely all together. I can't actually remember if it is in the book or if I'm just remembering one of the adaptations, but I think there is a moment where Peter is looking through the window at a grown-up Wendy. She is evoking this imagery of looking at something that you have lost from your childhood. And I think just overall that theme ties in really nicely with the song, and I'm glad she put that reference in there. I think it's very well done. The next one that I want to talk about isn't a one direct reference. It comes off of the track The Lakes, which is the bonus track off of Folklore, and Taylor references a lot of different poets and evokes some really cool imagery that I want to talk about.
I cut out for all these cynical clones, these hunters with cell phones. Take me to the lakes where all the poets went to die. I don't belong, and my beloved, neither do you.
Okay, so there's a lot here. just in that one line. Take me to the lakes where the poets went to die. Taylor is directly referencing an area in England called the Lake District, and this is famous because there are lake poets that were part of the Romantic movement and the Romanticism era of poetry that all lived and died in that area. And I think it's interesting that she talks about these specific poets because these poets that lived in this Lake District area or visited or died, spent some of their life there, are all part of the Romantic movement of poetry and Romanticism in general. I would say that Taylor herself is actually considered quite romantic. She writes songs mostly around love and heartbreak and themes like that. And she's also criticized heavily for her public relationships and public romances. So I think it's interesting that she is tying herself directly to these romantic poets when you could call her a romantic poet as well in her own right.
Heart-stopping waves of hurt. I've come too far to watch some name-dropping sleaze. Tell me what are my words worth.
Okay, so this is one of my favorite lines in the entirety of the album. Taylor says, "I've come too far to watch some name-dropping sleaze. Tell me what are my words worth." And I love the cleverness here because William Wordsworth was one of these Lake District poets. That is his last name. So she is cleverly twisting what are my words space worth into a little play on words referring back to the Lake District poets, which is kind of what this song is referencing throughout its entirety. But I also think she is saying, tell me what are my words worth. So Taylor, being a singer-songwriter, her words are literally worth money because she is able to craft these songs and create music. I think this is a really fun, interesting play on words that fit really well with the themes of the song overall, which I guess is something that I really enjoy because I've mentioned the reference fitting into the themes of the song is probably one of my favorite things. The last book that I want to talk about that Taylor actually references a couple of times is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Taylor definitely draws parallels to the 20s a lot. I think she likes that era and she directly references the 20s and Gatsby in a handful of songs. Taylor does directly reference Gatsby in the song This Is Why We Can't Have Nice Things off of the album Reputation.
It was so nice throwing big parties, jumping to the pool from the balcony, everyone swimming in a champagne sea. And there are no rules when you show up here, bass beat rattling the chandelier, feeling so Gatsby for that whole year.
So that whole verse is definitely reminiscent of Gatsby, and she directly references the novel in the last line saying, feeling so Gatsby for the whole year. In The Great Gatsby, the title character, Jay Gatsby, throws these extremely lavish parties to try and get the attention of his long-lost love, Daisy, and these parties are just known and described to be wild. She's definitely evoking that imagery with the champagne seas and jumping into pools from chandeliers and just the over-the-top lavishness that we do see in the parties that Jay Gatsby throws in The Great Gatsby. So I think that imagery is nicely juxtaposed with the title of the song and the chorus of the song, This Is Why We Can't Have Nice Things. These lavish parties that Gatsby throws never actually grab the attention of Daisy. The one person who he wants to come to these parties never actually comes.
Hello, quick minor correction. Daisy does go to one of Gatsby's parties. However, she is not having a good time and doesn't love it, and Gatsby gets upset by that. Minor correction, but I think the point that I make is still valid.
And you could also say that the point of view character Nick Carraway does learn a lesson of why people can't have nice things or shouldn't have nice things. While I don't know if that was Taylor's intention to simply evoke the imagery or if she wanted to explore some of the themes within the novel, I don't really love "This Is Why We Can't Have Nice Things" as a song, but I do appreciate that imagery at the beginning evoking a Gatsby and Gatsby's parties. Taylor can also, I think, could be evoking the fact that her pre-Reputation, her 1989 era, if you will, was filled with kind of empty parties, which ultimately is what is happening in The Great Gatsby. And so she could be commenting on her own life and that whole year kind of being an empty party, even though it looked flashy and wonderful, where she was ultimately was not in a good place. So that could be, you could be drawing parallels there as well. The next song that she references Gatsby in is Happiness off of Evermore.
When did all our lessons start to look like weapons pointed at my deepest hurt? I hope she'll be a beautiful fool who takes my spot next to you.
Okay, that song, oh, there are so many wonderful lines in that song. It's amazing. Folklore and Evermore, lyrically, if I haven't said that before, I think are Taylor's best work. But let's jump into the Gatsby reference that we just heard. The line that Taylor is singing in this portion of the song, "I hope she'll be your beautiful fool," is a direct quote, or almost a direct quote, from a line in Great Gatsby that is said by Daisy. Daisy is saying this about her daughter, basically describing her hopes for her young daughter's life, saying, "I hope she's a beautiful fool who is ignorant to kind of the world's troubles and can get through life a lot easier." In Happiness, Taylor is reflecting back on a relationship that ended badly but had some good times and some bad times, so she's kind of wrestling with those emotions. So I think she's kind of almost twisting this into a backhanded compliment in a clever way, and she is saying, I hope this new person is a beautiful fool and kind of ignorant in a similar way to Daisy wanting her daughter to be ignorant. She's hoping that this new person will be ignorant and, you know, that they'll have happiness and without all of the bad times that Taylor or the narrator went through. Love that line. I think it's a great line in Gatsby, and I'm glad Taylor used it in one of her songs. There is another line that references Gatsby in this song.
I had, tell me what to give after that. All you want from me now is the green light of forgiveness.
Taylor here is referencing Gatsby's probably most famous motif. I would be very surprised if there's not a lot of people that have heard about this, and that is the green light at the end of the dock. Gatsby and Daisy live across the water from each other, and there's a green light at the end of Daisy's dock, and Gatsby is continuously looking at this green light, so it symbolizes hope and what he hopes to make of his life once he gets Daisy's attention. However, throughout the novel, that green light symbolism changes and eventually just becomes a literal green light. So there's actually a line from the novel directly referring to this. It says, "The colossal significance of that light had now vanished forever. Now it was again a green light at the end of the dock." I think in the context of Happiness, you could look at it both ways. So you could look at the green light of forgiveness as a symbol of hope, and that maybe eventually they will one day reconcile and she will one day forgive this person for the bad times that they brought into her life. But if you look at it through the context of the green light at the end of the novel, then you see a little more of a sinister feel to it, because you could look at it as the green light symbolizing Gatsby and Daisy, and unfortunately, spoilers, Gatsby and Daisy don't have a happy ending. So we are looking at this as maybe if forgiveness is the happy ending, if the green light is symbolizing that, are we ever gonna get forgiveness? Is he ever gonna get forgiveness from her? Overall, these two references of Gatsby's are some of my favorite ways that Taylor uses literary references. Where I talked about at the beginning with earlier in her career, she kind of almost uses them as name drops or buzzwords when she talks about Romeo and Juliet and the Scarlet Letter. But as we progress forward, Taylor cleverly uses these literary themes and references to tie the song together. It just feels more personal and more thematically connected. And you have had to have read or watched, I guess, an adaptation of Gatsby to really understand the references here. She's not spelling it out step by step for you, which leaves it up to a little bit more interpretation as well, which of course I love. I'm doing this entire video, so love it. But yes, I really appreciate the subtlety and nuance that Taylor is starting to bring to her literary references, and I can't wait to see what she does in the future. That is it for this video. Those are my favorite literary references in Taylor Swift's current discography. I have enjoyed so much looking into this, so I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. If you disagree with me or have a reference that I didn't mention, let me know down in the comments. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. You can subscribe if you want to. You don't have to. I am just happy that you are here. I do, however, have a link to register to vote down in my description. In my opinion, it's never too late to register to vote. And I will leave you here. I'll see you next time. Bye.